City Mayor Eric Adams about the ongoing investigation coming up on Morning Joe. To Washington now, Pete Hegseth says that he will be back on Capitol Hill later today to meet with Republican senators as he tries to salvage his bid for defense secretary. This will be his fourth straight day on the Hill amid mounting allegations of sexual assault, alcohol abuse, and other misconduct. Hegseth told CBS News yesterday that he had spoken to President-elect Donald Trump, who told him to keep fighting. One of his key meetings yesterday was with Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa. She is, of course, a combat veteran who is also a sexual assault survivor. While she gave very little insight about what happened in her sit-down with Hegseth, a Democratic senator was very blunt about where the former Fox News host stands with lawmakers.
Can you summarize it for us?
It was a very frank and thorough discussion.
Senator, will you support Mr. Hegseth's nomination?
It was a frank and thorough conversation.
Did he ask for your vote specifically?
Thank you.
When you met with Matt Gaetz, you said he brought up some of the allegations against him. Did Pete Hegseth bring up any of these things?
It was a very thorough conversation.
And also frank.
Your concerns, any of your concerns.
Guys need a pathway. You need to be able to walk. You need to be able to walk. Any chance you're up for consideration as defense secretary, Senator?
I've talked to 5 to 10 Republicans who have said to me they're just waiting for the right moment to say no to Pete Hegseth, and for very good reasons.
Why do you think so few Republicans, none by my count, have been willing to come out and say they will definitively not support this nominee?
Nobody wants to defy Donald Trump if you're a Republican. Mm-hmm. The power of the presidency, not to mention this president-elect and what the retribution might be, I think is pretty daunting. And so I think Republicans are reluctant to step forward and be the first one. But I think privately, they're much readier to advise the president that the better part of wisdom would be to urge withdrawal of this nomination. I'd be surprised if we're still talking about Hegseth at the end of the week or by Monday.
Looking at some of Trump's other selections now, the president-elect is taking issue with the Wall Street Journal. He took to social media yesterday to blast a headline from the paper stating that Trump was experiencing a, quote, setback after his pick for DEA Administrator Chad Chronister withdrew his name from consideration. Trump was quick to deny any setback or difficulties whatsoever, claiming that he pulled the nomination because he didn't like what Chronister, quote, said to my pastors and other supporters. Now, NBC News had previously reported that Chronister, a Florida County sheriff, was criticized by conservatives for his handling of the COVID pandemic, specifically his decision in 2020 to arrest a Tampa area pastor for defying pandemic-era lockdown orders. Those charges were ultimately dropped. Trump upset that he perceived that it wasn't just a sheer show of force with all of these picks. He made a few more yesterday, including Peter Navarro as senior counselor for trade and manufacturing. Navarro, of course, served 4 months in federal prison earlier this year for defying a congressional subpoena from the House January 6th committee. The former Trump aide spread false claims that the 2020 election was stolen from Trump. He's also considered one of the architects of the plan to block the certification of that election in Congress. Navarro has consistently been a staunch defender of Trump's protectionist views, echoing his support for tariffs. Joining us now, White House correspondent for The Hill, Alex Gangitano. Alex, good to see you this morning. Let's dive into some of these picks, particularly Hegseth. You know, it's been a drip, drip, drip of allegations and reporting coming out about Hegseth and his conduct, both with veterans groups and then on Fox News. We heard from Senator Blumenthal a moment ago suggesting that he simply doesn't have enough support from Republicans, but he's not abandoning his quest just yet. Tell us what we know and how crucial are these next 24 hours as he tries to salvage his nomination.
What we know right now is just how defiant it seems like Pete Hegseth is being about not wanting to drop his nomination. You had mentioned that he talked to Trump yesterday. They made the decision for him to stay in the fight. He'll be headed up to Capitol Hill later today for, as you mentioned, his fourth day of meetings. But it was interesting hearing Senator Blumenthal say that by the end of the week, we might not be talking about him anymore. I think if he knows, that there are senators behind closed doors, not just, Senator Joni Ernst, who hasn't been committal, but some others who haven't been committal but aren't talking to the media about it, then he just simply does not have the votes. What's also interesting about some of these meetings yesterday is that his drinking came up a lot. We heard from Senator Kramer that he had asked him, if you become defense secretary, can you commit to just not drinking? And then he mentioned to another senator that he is willing to do that. So it seems like he is, aware of a lot of these allegations. He knows how controversial he can be, and he's trying to make some provisions here to get people more comfortable with him. But when it comes down to the sexual assault accusations, the likes of Ernst, Murkowski, those kinds of senators, I think we're going to see today is really the point that they'll have to come out and say it's a yes or a no.
Yeah, and even his promise there about drinking is an evolution. A few days ago, denied there were any issues at all. Now willing to make this promise to senators saying, hey, I'll stop. So let's say that this pick does go away, that Blumenthal is right. Talk to us a little bit more about where Trump would go from there. We heard Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as a possible replacement. Talk to us about him and who else might be in the mix.
Yeah, the DeSantis mix is so interesting to me because obviously these are former rivals. Donald Trump has not always been kind to Governor DeSantis when he was running for president or vying a bid. And I think that him getting this kind of a defense secretary pick, he has a background in the military. He's obviously very well liked in the state of Florida. He's well liked in the Republican Party, but wasn't quite there to beat Trump and be a presidential candidate. So I do think it would be a nod towards, unity in the party. It would be a nod towards somebody who does have the qualifications. I think if, we saw a Hegseth drop out and a DeSantis come in, DeSantis does have a history as a member of Congress. So he is known on the Hill and here in D.C. But I think we'd also be looking at a Gates kind of Pam Bondi situation that somebody new comes in and senators are, just so happy to get a new name, get to move on from the controversy of another name. So they'd be ready to just rally behind the likes of someone like DeSantis.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Alex, lastly and briefly, it is deliberate, the Trump transition team, the show of force, like how quickly these nominations have come, trying to say, like, look, we have momentum. But, we know he objected to that characterization in the Wall Street Journal, but he's had some stumbles now. Matt Gaetz had to pull out. The DEA pick withdrew. There's real questions whether Hegseth can make it. I think Tulsi Gabbard, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Kash Patel, they're going to face scrutiny, too. Talk to us just briefly about the mood there at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, so it seemed like they were rapid fire, like you mentioned, getting people that maybe weren't thoroughly vetted, like a Pete Hegseth, getting those names out there really quickly. And then now I think the fact that we saw the president-elect come out against a headline in the Wall Street Journal, they're still defying as well, too, to use the term from Pete Hegseth, that the mood at Mar-a-Lago is that they still feel good about their picks, but the likes of Gabbard and RFK and Kash Patel. But I do think right now Hegseth might be a situation that they're looking at. Is this worth it? Is this controversy worth it, like they were dealing with Matt Gaetz? But I think overall they're not feeling like we've stumbled too much here. If anything, some of these they were kind of just throwing out some names and seeing how senators would respond, and they're feeling good about it.
All right, we will follow what happens today. Big day on the Hill there, certainly for Pete Hegseth. White House correspondent for the Hill, Alex Gangitano. Alex, thank you for starting us off this morning.
Thank you.
Next up here, far left and far right lawmakers in France joined forces yesterday to remove the country's prime minister. We'll go through that historic vote. And we'll get an update on President Biden's visit to Angola, likely his final international diplomatic trip as president. Those stories and a check on sports and weather. We come right back as we take a live look at the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lit last night for the first time, sparkling this morning here in New York.
I'd love to just open it right up about like your thoughts on the future of creativity.
Creativity is code for sort of innovation and new and fresh and all the things that actually move us forward. So I think there's going to be a real premium for creativity. Now, I do want to preface it by saying not all creativity is worth saving, which is a controversial, provocative thing to say. The word creativity, like the word innovation, is quite generic. If AI can do a better version of that, have at it. But eventually, when everybody has access to exactly the same tools, who's going to create that next level of distinction? Creative people. So that's why I'm optimistic about it. I'm not saying don't worry about, we should be a little bit scared of the ramifications of things. But it's that fear that is also, I think we can parlay that into actually getting involved as opposed to sitting in the sidelines. I just love creative people, even though they're forward facing. The best ones have an appreciation. They're not held hostage by the past.
Yeah.
Success is not nostalgic.
Go beyond the headlines with the MSNBC app. Read, listen, and watch live breaking news and analysis anytime, anywhere. Go beyond the what to understand the why. Download the MSNBC app now.
Turning now to some of the morning's other top headlines, starting in France, where lawmakers passed a no-confidence vote against Prime Minister Michel Barnier and his cabinet, marking the first such move in over 60 years. With 331 votes, well above the required 288, Barnier's three-month-old government becomes the shortest-lived in France's Fifth Republic. The motion united Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally and some left-leaning coalitions, too. The political crisis deepens as France battles high debt, a widening deficit, and stagnant growth, while geopolitical tensions add pressure. The prime minister is expected to resign soon. Meanwhile, back here at home, Donald Trump's pick for FBI director may have been the target of an Iranian cyber attack. Two senior law enforcement officials tell NBC News that FBI informed Kash Patel about this hack. It's unclear exactly what had happened, but sources say it was before Trump nominated Patel to this position. It's believed the hackers targeted some of Patel's communications, but it's unknown what they were able to access.